Most of the eye splices in Dyneema are in lifeline. So this is the world's simplest eye splice. I need a pen. And it's super strong, quick and easy. This Dyneema is 72 diameters, burial for 100% line strength. Compared to the double braid they did the other day, which is 24 diameters burial. This is much slipperier, and that's the reason why. So 72 times 3/16 is, let's say, 100. This is the part that Chloe really likes. 10 and 3, right? 13 inches. Got it. So that's what we're going to bury, 13 inches. We're going to make the eye, kind of. Actually, we'll just put this in here because I'm going to make a hard eye. That's where the eye is going to be. So we're going to start by bringing the bitter end through the standing end, right there. And we're going to check and make sure it's in the middle, and it's not, so I'm going to take it, put one more. Whoops. And I got a little, you see that? I got one strand on the wrong side. They get real fussy when you put a strand wrong. This stuff does, because each of these little tiny hairs is kind of ridiculously strong. So put the eye back in there to measure for our size and pull that tight, and then we're going to mark about a diameter away from the crossover, right there. I was going to say that's going to be a little tight. We can make it a little looser, but we'll stick with that for now. Get the eye out of the way. Now this is the fun part. We're gonna enter at that mark and put the the bitter end through its own standing leg. So we're going to keep on going until we invert that. And there. It's inverted. Now we're going to keep on going that same direction. We're going to de-invert it. We're going to turn it inside out. It's sort of hard to see, but there we go. It's coming. It's turned inside out. Now we're going to pull that. This is the original eye. This is going to be what our eye is. We're going to pull that through. It's going to collapse, and it often will get sort of inverted when we're pulling it through itself. We're not going to invert this one though. We're going to just open it back up like it was. And come on, kid. Oh. And what we have here, let's call it a locked Brummel splice. That's the beginning of it. The whole point of putting this bitter end through itself and inverting itself was to make this, it is like we had cut off the other end of this. It's like we took this leg, put it through that leg, and then took this leg and put it through that leg. So they go through each other. So this this eye splice, it can't come apart. It's locked, basically, by that. And we could have done, you can do the exact same thing by cutting off this leg, but I don't know how long the lifeline is yet. So I'm working off the spool, and I'm not about to put 600 feet of rope through that, but we'd end up with the same thing. So hence the whole inverting and de-inverting of the tail. Next we're going to put this hard eye in its place. There we go. Just because it's a little easier to do it now than after we do the berry. Then we're going to make a taper, as always, because tapers are stronger, because it allows the rope to lie straighter. If we can find our scissors. We're going to start the taper a little ways away. Just pull one yarn. Oops, one yarn. Gnaw through it with the dull scissors. Pull it out. And then we're going to go about every inch or so. I'm going to pull 10 of these out. So it was a 13-inch berry we had. Start a few inches away from the eye and then start cutting them every inch or so. Okay, it's 12 strands, so there's 2 left, full length. The other 10 are all cut off in various different places. That's how long it's going to be, but when we put all this rope inside of this leg's going to expand and get shorter. So we need to start a ways past the end of our tail. And we're going to enter, maybe 4 inches past where the tail ends, just to be sure that it gets buried. And we come right out, right at that crossover. Reveal the snare, grab it, the tail pretty far up. And then pull that out and pull it tight. So pull the tail tight and then done. Easy. So this is going to be we'll use this to make one side of a gate. And a gate's a little bit different. Because of the gate, you actually can't Well, you can do that lock Brummel splice like I showed, but you're actually splicing onto a gate hook. So it works a lot better if you cut your line first and then do the locked Brummel splice the old-fashioned way, so to speak. So we'll start out, on one side of the gate is going to be an eye poking through a stanchion. The eye will be sitting here like that. This will hook on there. We're going to do our measurement right about there, about halfway, with half the threads out and half the threads in, is where I found it works best to measure these gates. Then the other side of the gate is also going to have, there's going to be an eye on the other side as well, and we'll make a splice eye and run the rope through its splice, through the eye, and then we'll make another eye. So that's how the gate hooks, how the gates attach. So let's just do that splice real quick. 13 diameters. We're not going to put a hard eye, so we don't really, it doesn't matter what the size of the eye is so much. Actually, we're not going to do 13 diameters either, because gates are usually 2 feet wide, and you can't bury 13 inches plus the eye on both ends because it's not long enough. So we're just going to run in, but obviously a gate doesn't need to withstand a force of 6,500 pounds. It would tear the stanchions out of the boat. So we don't really care if this gate hook is not 100% line strength in this case. There's a lot of times when the line is, well, most of the ropes that we use in sailing, the line strength is way out of proportion with what it's supposed to be doing. Like halyards, for example, a half-inch rope is 10,000 pound average break, but so it's not the strength, it's not the ultimate strength of the line that we care about. It's the ease of handling in the case of halyards and sheets, because a skinny line, because 5/16 is big enough to do that, or 8mm is big enough, but it's not very handy on your hands. And this, for this rope, for example, it's way overkill for the strength, but it's the failure mode for this stuff is through chafe. So we make it big enough that it can chafe on those stanchions for years and years without compromising the strength. Oh, the pesky little de-inversion. There it comes. That one. Uninversion. They always do that. They always collapse when you pull them through. I'm going to start the taper closer to the eye this time, and I'm going to taper quicker because our tail is not, it's not 13 inches, it's like 9. Okay. So this represents the one side. So, alright. So right there is going to be our eye. So that's where we're gonna make it. So you can see the other one is buried to here. You don't really have much room. I'll bury it about that much. There's one sharp part in here. If I can just find it. It's not there. So now we're going to do it like we're going to do the locked Brummel, but in a way that makes sense, in the way that we're actually putting this leg through this leg, then we put this leg through that leg. Get it? Close enough. The reason for doing it the other way is that if we went through it, inverted this this direction, we would have to pull this entire eye hook through the splice, and which means that our eye would have to be big enough that this thing would fit through it. So your eye is then this long, and there's nothing left of the rope to bury. So we do it the other way with this. In this situation, go here at the crossover and put this end through that end. Take a little more. Dicking around when you're putting the entire eye through, but it goes not too hard. And there. It's indistinguishable visually from doing it the other way. It's kind of funky. A lot of riggers don't do a locked Brummel splice. They'll just bury the Dyneema and then sew instead of locking it like this. They'll sew it, whip it and sew it back and forth so it can't come apart, which I think looks like garbage. And now we're going to try and sneak in here without getting too caught up in the other tail. It's a little bit full and stiff there. but tail. Almost. Let's see if we can get that to
force it into submission.
almost. Where is it? Oh, this one. Okay, that'll do. Now, I'll just slide this to itself. Oops. Caught a strand on that. There we go. And then, if this were an actual gate install, you would have to back this off pretty much all the way to the end, because burying that this last bit makes it shorter. And then put it like that and stretch it real tight. Gotta stretch it. You'll be out here like stretching it like that, and then open it up, and you can, reverse thread, shut it down again, and get it super tight. And that's how lifelines work. The only thing we didn't get into on the other end of the lifeline. So on one end of the lifelines, we tie them with stuff called Lash It, which is a lashing Dyneema. It's 5/32 inch or something like that, and so the Dyneema doesn't stretch hardly at all, but when you first make when you first put it on, you'll seat these splices down quite a bit. So when we measure that for this, for example, you'll put like there'll be a hard eye on one end, say there's a gate there, and then I go all the way through the 4 stanchions to the forward end, and I'll mark the center of the eye, the longest part of the eye, about, depending on the overall length of the lifeline, let's say it would be about 2 inches for each section of each section. How's that? It's hard to say. On shorter ones, you make it about 6 inches away. You mark the end about 6 inches away from where you're going to put it, and then when you do that lashing and pull it really tight, you'll end up being about 3 inches away. And on the longer runs, you go a little further, like 8 to 10 inches, and then when you tie it in tight, it'll be about 4 inches away, because there's that much stretch and give and inaccuracy in the measurements and stuff. But you want to have, you know, some amount of lashing in there so that in the future, if the lifelines get bent in or something or whatever, if something gets damaged, they can tighten it up again. Does that make any sense? Yeah? Okay.